Ladies and gentlemen, from his basement studio in Rockland, Ontario, it's the Alec McNorman Show!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Alec McNorman Show. Today is my very special guest, longtime friend, and ex-petty officer second class, the one, the only, Brent Watters. Welcome to the show, Brent.
Thanks for the invite. I'm looking forward to it.
Right on, yeah, I think this is going to be a little bit of fun. Okay, so first thing I like to do, Brent, is I'm going to go over your bio really quick, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Is that okay with you?
Sure.
Right on. Okay, so Brent has a much storied career, commencing service to Canada as a Canadian Forces medic, non-commissioned member. From there, he went on to other Canadian Forces vocational specialties, such as a healthcare administrator officer, boo, and informal conflict management. Brent retired from the CF in 2008 after 25 years of service and joined the Royal Canadian Mounted Police O Division headquarters located in London in June 2017. He came from Garrison, Petawawa, where he'd spent the better part of the last 5 years. Oh, sorry, this is going from an old thing. As Labor Relations Officer for Department of National Defense, and we'll be talking about that experience a little bit later, Brent. Brent has a wealth of experience and significant specialized training and education. Originating from Aylmer, Ontario, as his hometown, he's just getting ready to retire again full-time coming up this summer, right, Brent?
Yep.
Right.
Looking forward to it. I think I'm at peace with it now.
Yep. And then you still have obviously your son and daughter, Kyle and Brianne, and that's it for the bio.
Yep. Very good.
Right on. Okay, so first thing I want to talk to you about, Brent, is like I said, we've known each other for a long time. Most of it through playing hockey and stuff like that. So. And we've always heard the great stories of the great defenseman Brent Watters growing up in. Now it says Aylmer, but aren't you from St. Thomas?
Well, I played junior B hockey in St. Thomas, and,
okay.
Senior year at Aylmer and stuff before joining the military, which was in my mind much better hockey.
Yeah, the military hockey was.
Especially the Germany years.
Yeah. Keep bragging about it. We'll get to that after. So you grew up there, and so you're playing hockey, and everything was going well. Smoking and joking, and you said that you worked a lot of summer times in tobacco fields or whatever, right?
Yeah, with tobacco, so I started at probably about age 12, doing the thing called shaking sticks, and then I drove priming machine and stuff at about 13 years of age, and then after that I started priming and eventually hung kill, which is quite interesting. So I did just about every job on the tobacco farm from about age 13 until the time I joined the forces at 22.
Nice. So that's good that you worked all those years in the summer and stuff. Now it's funny that you mentioned about your military career at 22, because if I remember the story correctly, it wasn't really your decision to join the military. It was a judge actually mentioned to you jail or the military. Is that true?
Well, it's kind of in part like that, but anyways, I was kind of well known with the police and with the law in the city and at the St. Thomas in the Aylmer area, and things used to get fines constantly, and nothing major, but just petty stuff with the so I was kind of not headed down a good road, and most of my friends back then were all getting married and starting off to having kids because it was a different time and stuff, everybody having kids that started getting married by the time they're 21, 22. So I thought for where I was at and stuff, with little to no education, I better get into the military or something. I was trying to persuade my brother to join, and then I thought I better take my own advice and join the military, and it was no looking back after that.
Nice. Yeah, I remember. Like I said, I don't want to sound like gushy McGusherton there, but I've always found over the years that your career trajectory and your path has been as far as I can tell, like motivational and inspirational, like coming into the military as a 22-year-old and then going on your own to get your own degree, paying for a degree through the education program. Now the military paid you back, reimbursed you, but you didn't go through the UTP NCM program where like you basically had the time off to do your own degree. You worked and then you did your degree on off times and I kudos to you, man.
Yeah. Well, just back up for a minute. I'll share something with you that's kind of interest. It's kind of, I don't mind talking about it because it's reality. It happened and stuff. So I had quite a few impaired drivings before I joined the military.
Okay.
I probably would have never gotten into the military, today
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
the record that I had then and stuff. And so when I first come into the military, most of my charges were when I was about 17. So at 22, when I first came in, I kind of continued on my ways. And when I was in Gordon, I got picked up for coming through the gates, and I was a little over the limit, legal limit. And so they proceeded to charge me, the MPs. And I said, this is going to end my career and everything. And they said, no, it'll be fun and stuff. And it wasn't fine. Actually, I went to court and got sentenced to 3 months in jail. And so it was kind of funny because the forces decided to keep me because I was their top student on half of the TT3 training.
Okay.
And so somebody decided to keep me, and I know who they are and stuff. But a lot of people pulled a lot of strings to get me halfway out in record time, and so that I could work at NDMC. And after they volleyed me around different units because nobody wanted.
That's nice. Yeah, I'd imagine in today's climate, you would have been fucking trounced out of the army pretty quick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I would have gotten in actually with with not having high school. I had barely grade 9 education and 0.80 credits when I joined. I had a record as long as my arm. Just petty stuff until that triple impaired driving charge come up, and then that really screwed me and stuff. And like I said, went spent 4 days in 4 days in Berry jail and then 8 days in Pembroke jail because I thought I was going to Petawawa and they didn't want me, and then they tried to send me to Calgary and Calgary didn't want me, but NDMC took me.
That's funny. But again, to me, that makes your story even all the more incredible about how you were able to just keep chugging along, and it's one of those things, right, where somebody believed in you, gave you a break, and then you just took that break and then turned it into what I consider to be a fantastic career. So and I think that's what's wrong right now, especially in the military, is like there is like zero quarter given now. If you go out and fucking get into a fight at Sassy's or whatever they call it in Petawawa now on a Saturday night, come Monday morning, they've already got the paperwork drawn up for you to be on C&P and fucking, pretty much on the way out the door. It's like I remember like back in the day is like fucking charge parade on Monday morning for the CSM for everybody that got charged on the weekend for fighting. It was just one of those things. Now it could be a career ender. So, like I said, in the military, like it's no secret right now that the leadership is horrible and they're having a hard time recruiting and stuff. And this is the reason why, because you're not allowed to make a mistake anymore. You get these young people. And, nowadays there's a lot more older people joining the military, but you get people coming in that have come from different walks of life. And, it takes them a while to come in and, adapt to the culture or whatever. But it just seems like now everybody's afraid to make a decision, to make a mistake or whatever, or to take somebody like you who may have been a bit of what we would consider to be a shit show now and just give you like a little bit of hey man, you know what? Like, we see something in you, but you got to stop fucking up. And then like I said, look what happened to you. You've had such a great career, getting your degree, and then moving on to doing dispute resolution. So, and I think so. Kudos to you, but also poo-poo to the military because we don't do that anymore. I'm pretty certain that I don't think that we would take somebody with as much problems as you had back in the day and fucking groom you to the man that you've become.
Yeah, it's you touched on a lot of things there. My yeah, it's just it's astounding that a lot of people are passing by and that could potentially be very good for the forces and stuff, and
Yeah.
because maybe they you know con- confess that they do marijuana or things like that,
Yep.
that the force is still not supportive of, and I can remember when I went to basic training in Cornwallis, and they said write down everything that you did that you got in trouble with the law, and I was having to pull sheets of
Yeah.
paper off of and stuff, and there's no way that it would even
Well,
they
fuck!
would
I
probably
remember getting to basic training and like two or three in the morning when you get in there, and you've got the guys from Newfoundland that had already been there for like 2 days. Then they already looked like their life was over. They had their heads shaved and wearing the fucking
right.
coveralls and stuff. But they would come around with the garbage bag, and there were guys like just chucking in bunches of drug paraphernalia and shit like that because they're like,
Yeah,
okay, well that was then and this is now. And now, yeah, we both know of that one young fellow that went into recruiting with a great, he's got a degree, he's got, he's young, he's fit, he's keen, hardworking, intelligent. But he said, yeah, I smoke pot and I will continue to smoke pot. And they're like, well, we gotta fucking, we gotta hold off on this. And like, it's legal, dude. It's
yeah.
legal now. You shouldn't even be asking that question anymore.
You say, well, because you take a puff every day that you're addicted. Well, what, who's diagnosing that? Anyways,
Yeah,
but that's
yeah.
much bigger
No, and,
and
and
stuff.
look back in our day, like how many functioning or not very well functioning alcoholics were there in our ranks?
Oh,
Fucking, you know. So yeah, a
yeah,
guy takes a toot on on a fucking Sediment or a Rex or a Sativa or whatever every once in a while or once a day, and of course, sorry, we can't let you in. That's bullshit.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so you did your degree while you're at NDMC, and so you went to Camp Carlton, but apparently, like back in our day, in the 80s and 90s, it was actually Camp Carlton because anybody could get in at that time. But
Yeah.
Carlton's reputation has really come up over the years, and so can you give me like, did you actually have to go to classes to?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So students, yeah. So just touch upon that. I was considered last stop U then,
yeah,
Carleton
yeah.
University and stuff. And I applied more there. The reason why I went there was because of proximity for me. Being in the city, there was no way I was going to get into Ottawa U because of not being bilingual and things like
Yeah,
that.
and it
But
was walking distance from your halfway house.
yeah, no, so when I did Carleton was after the Germany years. So I was in about, I think I was in about, I started school in '96. So I was already in the courses for 13 years. But anyways, and they kind of got my inspiration from a nurse because, she gave me an assessment once, and she says, someday you might make sergeant. And not that there's anything wrong with the sergeant rank, but I had aspirations for myself being somewhat higher. And then when I thought about it, what she said, there's some truth to it because I didn't have any education. And so I started going back to night school on the side, and it started early. It started my first posting in NDMC,
Okay.
and then it continued on when I got to the Germany years, and I did high school with a lot of different people that I'm still friends with on Facebook today, and then eventually I came back to NDMC again for a second posting, and on that posting I decided, because I was switching to an OR tech, and that I said no, this is not the career for me to be an OR tech,
Yeah.
and so I applied to go back to university, and so so again, you had the right people, the right place, at the right time, and so I was able to let me go to school and work out of ICU and MDMC while I went back to night school. Mostly night school, day school. It was kind of a combination, so
Yeah.
I just worked with you whenever I could.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. Now, one of the things is, so again, that was all done through the military and stuff, and then you see, you did the shit, what's it called, special commissioning plan to HCA, and then went that route. But before I get to that, I want to hit, especially again in today's climate and stuff like that. For those people that don't know, I made reference to you in episode 1 about how you're native, and you and I have had some pretty good jests, calling each other names that a lot of people would not want us to be talking to each other about on the air or in person. It would offend them. But so, all joking aside, between all the things, like when I used to call you like wagon burner and spear chucker and stuff like that, and you'd call me
Yeah.
and you'd call me other names. But
Yeah.
did you in your time in the military, did you ever experience like actual real racism to your knowledge?
No, no. Most of the stuff was harmless stuff. I played because of the hockey that I played, the competitive hockey and stuff, and the camaraderie on the team and stuff. There was, a lot of harmless joking and stuff. Like played with French people, and I didn't call them the best names going
Yeah,
either
yeah,
and stuff. It was tit for tat and stuff, and so they call me BFI, big fucking Indian, and
yeah,
guy, and so it was pretty harmless. But I will make one comment: when the natives got allowed to get their to grow their hair long, I was in RCR at the time, and so I was with one RCR serving with them as the UMS sergeant, and so I was walking with a padre and a major, or captain major, I can't remember which rank, but anyways, and so the padre said to me, so you can agree for your hair long, and the major says, what are you talking about? And the padre says, well, Brent's native, so he can grow his hair long now. And the major said, or the captain said, yeah, that'll fucking fly around here. And
yeah,
And
yeah,
I said to the Padre, I says, no, that's not really me anyways. I says, I wouldn't do that. I says, I don't really have a desire to grow my hair out like that. I'm not that, I'm spiritual, but I'm not to that level,
yeah.
that side to it. So that was the only thing that said, it wasn't mainly coming from him, maybe he was speaking the truth, that if I had, it would have, might have resulted in some unfavorable things for me.
Yeah, well,
But
that was in the '90s, right? I think when that came out, or was that in the
yeah,
2000s?
yeah, 97,
Yeah,
somewhere around there
yeah.
anyways, and
Well,
98.
wait for it, man. It's coming down the pipe sooner rather than later. That it's everybody's going to be able to go let their hair grow long, and piercings and two-tone hair and stuff like that. Not that I have any insight on this, but this is the rumblings that I'm hearing from some of my old sergeant major and RSM buddies. So, um, so it's going to be everybody that's going to be able to let their hair grow long and ponytails and stuff. So, but
Yeah,
whatever. I still have my own opinions that I think that we as a military now are combat ineffective, but that's just me anyway. But kind of getting off topic. So that's awesome. Now, after you worked at as HCA at the base medical clinic in Petawawa for a while, and then you branched over to the dispute resolution center when that opened up, correct?
yeah. So what I went to school was when I just wanted an education. I wanted a degree, and so I was initially enrolled in political studies, and then I was coming home from I'd venture down to Aylmer often to visit friends and stuff, and so I was coming through Toronto, and I was listening to a talk show, and they were talking about how there's going to be so much work in the conflict management field in the future and stuff, and I said, hey, Carleton's got a conflict resolution center, and I know they're kind of leading the way in that field, and so I went in and I applied to change my degree. So I changed it over to it was not a specific conflict resolution degree at the time.
Okay.
So I went and put in my own proposal, and for interdisciplinary studies, specializing in human resources and conflict management. And both of them, proved successful for me for future work,
Yeah.
because one with conflict management, and then eventually the labor relations, what I'm looking at.
Okay, so you have 2 degrees then, or is it 1 degree with a
Nope, nope,
specialty?
just one degree. It's called interdisciplinary studies, a Bachelor of Arts,
Okay,
specializing in conflict resolution and labor relations.
cool,
And so yeah, it's paid dividends.
nice. So now I'm going to put you on the spot here because you've had experience working as dispute resolution for the military, as a civilian working with the base in Petawawa with conflict resolution or dispute resolution with civilians, and then now the RCMP. So I'm going to put you on the spot and say which one has the most issues, if you care to answer, and because I know you've got some funny stories, like no names, no pack drill, but out of the three of them, like, are the issues pretty much similar across the board for? Because basically we're all public servants,
Yeah.
but which did you find most challenging? I guess is what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, it's conflict resolution has presented its own challenges, basically because people ultimately want a pound of flesh. They would basically want to feel that they're right and the other person's wrong. And we're creatures of habit, so we're quickly to get back. So if we behave in the manner that we were in conflict, it, you know, and not cognizant of trying to change the way that we are, and we're going to soon find ourselves back into conflict. And that's what happened with when I was working in the conflict resolution field. Was I found that either it was unsuccessful because people didn't care, they didn't want to change, they didn't want to know how they contributed to the conflict, so they were soon back in conflict again. And the same is true for like I said, if they didn't modify their behavior, they'd soon, you know, find themselves in conflict, and they want to feel that they're right, the other person's wrong, and they wanted some punitive thought towards the other person, and you're not going to get that through conflict resolution.
Yeah.
In labor relations, there is a mess out there, and where it becomes real problematic, especially in high tempo operations like for the Canadian Forces and the RCMP, is they're so committed to operational tempo that really for as much as they want to do right by their human resources, and they know it's their most important commodity, they just don't have the time to devote to that. And so a lot of times it's poorly managed, and but but a lot of the problems come from maybe a handful of people in each organization. And if you could walk them to the front door and say adios, like would happen in the civilian organization, we wouldn't have the problem. There wouldn't be a requirement for as many people in my field if we had more power to terminate and stuff like that. But we just don't.
Yeah,
Because
because every time you open a paper or go on Facebook or you turn on the CTV or CBC, there's always some kind of a negative comment about how the human resources and the RCMP is, and how fucked up it all is and everything. But you're saying that that's basically, as much as you guys are trying to stop it, or everybody across the board is trying to do their best, Operation Tempo just doesn't afford for that. Is that what you're saying, or?
Yeah, well, our role is to provide advice and guidance to managers, so that they're in compliance with the directives, regulations, orders, policies, and the collective bargaining agreements and stuff. And there's no way that they can be attuned to the stuff. So we provide that guidance. And like I said, it's the pendulum's so far, in my mind, in favor of the public servants and stuff like that, or the union, Well, normally, you know, it's a privileged world in a lot of sense, and we could have, if the same was happening in the public out there, you'd be fired
Yeah.
for some of the, and we didn't tolerate it, or the public, or the private institutions out there and businesses and stuff wouldn't put up with it.
Yeah. So I guess so for devil's advocate though, like I've got a couple friends that are police, not so many RCMP, but city cops and OPP stuff like that. Um, it's not easy for like the fucking media and people aren't making it easy these days to be a cop. So I can imagine that it would be frustrating to be on the streets and taking all this flack and stuff about BLM and defund the police and all this stuff, and then come back to work and have like your bosses or whatever like harping on you for stuff that you believe is like pissant stuff and don't really want to engage it. Are you seeing some of that, or am I putting words in people's mouths?
Uh, yeah, I don't. I can just say that I couldn't imagine being a police officer today because of how we went through that in the '80s, the military when I first joined. I can remember being ashamed to wear uniform anywhere, in the early '80s, and I don't know. A lot of people respect the police officers, and I have the utmost respect for them. For be harkening back to my days when I was young. They did what they were supposed to do, and in correcting me and stuff like that. Now today, it's even more complicated for the police officers and stuff, and met a lot of great police officers, but I couldn't imagine, and I'm kind of removed from it, so I really can't comment too much, or I don't have much that I can comment on policing from the RC.
Yeah, it's tough, man. Like like I said, I support those guys fully. Now, of course, if, I've never been a fan of corrupt cops or whatever, but I do think that there is an enormous microscope on these guys and gals right now, and they're in a giant fishbowl, and I don't think that they get a fair shake when anything happens. So good for them, and thank you for helping them. Try to stay safe and respectable in the workplace while they're not out on the streets getting spit at and stuff like that. So that's great. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask you one more question before we move on to near the end of the interview, which is, and I forgot to bring this up to you before, so sorry if I'm blindsiding you, but I remember that when we were in Pembroke, Petawawa together, and you had a regular column in the Observer, and I loved reading your stuff. Are you still publishing editorials for where you are now in London now, or are you still writing, or?
No, I inquired, when I left, because it was, I forget what the name of the group was, Osprey or something like that, the publishing or whatever, from the Pembroke Observer, and to see if they could connect me in with anybody in work. I was doing the editorials and stuff like that, and I do like writing, and I'd like to continue that on. But since I came into this job, I thought I'd wait until time permitted that I could go back to writing. So hopefully that's in the cards for the future.
Awesome
stuff, because I really like writing. It's funny. I wrote some of the articles that I wrote was about the political turmoil south of the border, between the Dems and the Republicans, Democrats and Republicans, and then I wrote about our national anthem. I wrote about Facebook.
Yeah, yeah.
Better than I have on Facebook.
Yeah.
And stuff. I just don't understand.
I'm just coming off another 3-day ban today, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, like I said, I read your stuff and I thought it was great, and it's funny because you wrote that about probably 5-6 years ago now, and it's relevant today still.
Yep.
It's like it's crazy. It's like you had a crystal ball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. for sure,
Cool.
for
Okay.
sure.
So last question, Brent, before I let you go and on to the rest of your day, because it is Friday, and I know how you like to have your rye and cokes, or is it
Yeah.
rum and coke? I can't remember.
I prefer rum and coke,
Rum
but
and coke. That's right. That's
I
right.
don't discriminate against any of them.
I just remember you always used to fucking shake your glass with the ice when it was empty, and oh,
Oh yeah,
I gotta go fill it again. Brent's out. But
gotta have lots of ice.
eh?
Gotta have lots of ice.
Yeah, exactly. Tons of ice. So the last question I have is, what's going on for the future? Like you're retiring this year, so
Yeah, I think so. It seems to be time because now I can retire from my second public service job without penalty, and so I might. So I decided I might do that, and it seems like it's time. I want to do some other things, especially like hitting the golf course a little bit more often than
yeah,
I was able to while I'm working, and writing. But something that I'm really interested in late is stock market trading, and I thought I'd be a day trader, but that's way too complicated. I'm going to stay in the realm of swing trading. I think it's
yeah. I had a friend of mine that's a day trader, and it's an all day job, man. He gets up at 5 and looks at all the tickers and stuff across the seas and everything, and then plans his day of how he's going to do it. I'm like, good on you, man. That's way more than I want to do. I like just going into my Quest Trade account like once a week and saying, oh, okay, so I'll move this around, I'll move that around. But yeah,
yeah.
so and actually before you go, because I've talked to the guys about you, I know that you and or more Kyle than you, but are you still doing the Bitcoin thing?
Yeah, I just about own every ETF, and I don't do the buy the actual coins where you need the security whatever for it and
Okay,
stuff. What I guess they're called, and it was far too complicated for me. And so with these new ETFs that are out on the market, Purpose has got one. There's a lot of them that are out there. Stuff, and I highly recommend.
cool. Okay, buddy, that's great. So thanks for tuning in, everybody, and thank you very much, Brent, for being here. And for those of you people, so you had a wee bit of a uh, tax information, investment information from Brent. If you'd like to know more, you can let us know at the Alec McNorman Show at gmail.com. And I'll put you in touch with Brent and we can talk about more investing and stuff like that. And we've got it all here. We've got Frank with his property investing stuff and Brent with his investing stuff. So Alec McNorman Show at gmail.com, everybody, and we can make you all rich. So
Yeah,
once, so once again, Brent, thank you very much, and I'll be talking to you after.
yeah, blast. Thanks.
All right, man. And now it's time for Norm's rant. Well, everybody, there you go. You just heard a story of one young man who who took his troubled youth as a problematic native teenager growing up in southern Ontario, getting in trouble with the law and drinking and carousing and doing things that young people do, but recognized that he was going down the wrong path, and the military at that time anyway was a way to get people back on track. So what did he do? He joined the military, and like I said, the sad thing of the story right now is like the current climate in the military is the military would not have accepted him because of his checkered past, and what would have happened to young Brent Watters at 21 years old if he couldn't have got into the military on the trajectory that he's going. And this is what I'm talking about. This is what I want to talk about with the rant. Is like we used to be able to give people chances, and there were things in the world that were out there. The military being one of them. Whereas like like if we had people that were actually heading down the wrong path, or or whatever, there were ways of actually correcting those behaviors, and making them fall in line and become better citizens, and learn respects, maybe stuff that they didn't have taught to them when they were younger or whatever. It doesn't matter. But when people went into basic training years ago, I remember it's just like everything that you see right now, like on the movies and stuff like that. The first 6 weeks were guaranteed to break you down. You could not do anything right. That's just the way that it was. And then after that, coming closer to the end of basic training, they build you back up. And that's all that does is it gets you, it brings you down, it brings everybody down to like a base level of you're all equally worthless. But conversely, that means you're all equally the same and you're all equally as good. So then, once they break everybody down to the same thing, and then they start bringing you up, and then you start taking pride in your work, and you are, what used to be a pain in the ass of getting up every morning or sleeping on the floor because you made your bed perfectly the night before, so you'd sleep on the floor and be a little bit uncomfortable. So for inspection time, it looked perfect because you had your kit and everything laid out, but you slept on the floor. And then after that, you realize, okay, well, if I can do that, those little hardships, and then, like how hard is it for me to wake up in the morning, make my bed, be a decent person, do a good job, pay my taxes, and then we always had the thing of work hard, play hard. So you'd go out and do that. So why am I saying that? Well, there's a couple of things. The first thing, number one, is that I am convinced now that we are combat ineffective as a nation. The military has become too much of a social experiment, and we're doing a great disservice to the men and women and others of the Canadian Armed Forces. And like I said, why am I saying that? Well, because I've met a few people in my career that as individuals, you would not want them to date your sister, meet your mother, whatever. But I tell you, when it comes to combat and it's like break glass here, these are the people that you want on your side. And I've seen it firsthand how these guys are, very, very rough around the edges. But when it comes time to do their best to kick down doors and make people pay for some of the bad things they've done, you cannot find any better soldiers in the world to do that. And it's hard for them to come back in and find a place in the world. And, there's a reason why that the Romans used to keep their army out of the cities, because there are people out there that are like that, we need them in the military. It's like that whole thing from, what's that, Few Good Men or whatever, we need people like that on the wall, and we do. Unfortunately, sometimes, though, those aren't the same people that we need kicking around in society. So, I mean, that's opened up its own thing. But like I said, a guy like Brent, who, in my opinion, has always been a bit of a mentor to me, growing up and coming up through the ranks, and seeing this guy who started out as like a troubled native kid, came in on his own time, did his own degree, raised his kids, had a good life with Joanne until, years later they ended up splitting. But it's one of those things. Is like I watched him go from just like he said, he didn't want to be just a normal sergeant, and like you said, not there's anything wrong with that, but he had a goal. But if he didn't get into the military at that time, he wouldn't be able to achieve that goal or recognize that goal, because he would have still been probably stuck in Aylmer, Ontario, and drinking and driving and fighting and, well, like they always say, right? Fighting and fucking and stuff like that. So what does that mean? So where am I going with this? Well, with the whole thing with the virtue signaling and stuff like that, and I'll use Trudeau again. Justin Trudeau is a man who says all the right things and dances around with his pretty smile and all that good stuff. But he's a human piece of garbage, and but yet he still gets away with all these things. And and I'll compare him to Trump. Trump said a couple of stupid things, and I grabbed him by the pussy and whatever. And like, okay, if anybody actually really did that, they would be thrown in jail. Like, first and foremost, that was locker room talk. And if you don't think that still exists, well, then you're wrong. And by the way, I've heard women say some pretty disgusting things as well. However, what I'm trying to say is, like, there should be a way of, like, and especially in leadership roles, you should be able to have a political life, and you should be able to have a personal life. And the reason why I say this, I'm going to use two names here that people always use as fairly good leaders in our time. So JFK, who was a carousing womanizer as president, but is regarded as one of the greatest presidents of history. So again, why were we able to sit back and say, okay, well, like, yeah, like as a human being, he may not be the person that you want to follow and respect and stuff like that. But as a leader of the country, the guy tried his damnedest to bring the country together, and and with his whole "ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country," which has now since been lost, by the way. So yeah, so was he cheating on his wife and getting a bit on the side with whatever? Probably, but. What does that mean? Did it make him a shitty leader? No, it made him a bit of an asshole, made him a womanizer and a serial adulterer, but the guy was a fucking good leader from everything that I can understand. Same thing, President Clinton. I remember that whole thing with him and Monica Lewinsky. And like I said, I've been a conservative for quite a while, but and again, this is stuff that happened down in the States. But it's just like, like who cares? The guy got a blowjob in the Oral Office, as it became known afterwards. Who cares? What's his policies doing for the country? How are things looking economically? What's it looking for, the race wars and the war on drug and all that stuff? Now, again, like I am not any person that, likes to sit there and say, well, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. I honestly think that, like, right now, the divide is much bigger than it has been in the past. But I think that we need to come back to the center. And these are things that I'm having difficulty with my friends, both now liberal and conservative. Like some of my conservative friends that are listening to what we need to do as conservatives to get back into power and to help get the country back on track. And they're like, well, you're selling out the party, and you're doing this, that, and the other thing. It's like, no. And I've heard up, numbers of 40% of people that are, like, well, you're alienating 40% of your base. I'm like, well, no, you're looking at it the wrong way. 40% of the conservative base needs to move up with the times. The whole thing about abortion and LGBTQ and stuff, that's done. It's over with. And the whole marijuana and stuff, it's done. It's over. It's mainstream. There's no going back. So we need to identify that. You need to accept that. And we need to just sit back and the one thing that I'm 100% sure on is nobody is putting the country first. Everybody is putting their own wants and needs and desires before the country's needs, and that's what's really bothering me. And why am I saying all this again? Well, here we come back to the beginning. If we had everybody the opportunity that was handed to Brent back in the day to say, hey man, you know what? Why don't you give this a try? You only have to do a couple of years, like 5 years, and you come out of it with usually a skill, at least some discipline, and some money in your pocket if you do it properly, like the Americans do with the GI Bill, the Montgomery Bill. I think we should have something like that, and I believe that we're actually moving towards that. But the thing is we need to get better discipline into our country. We need to get more chances for people that have erred in the past to come into places like, say, the military or whatever, where they can get some leadership, some guidance, and some mentorship, and at the same time learn a skill and get some, what's the word I'm looking for here? Like improve their self-image, and then everybody will go out and we'll have a good time because everybody will be, judged on what they do and what they do in their own bedrooms or in the privacy of their own home or whatever. Who cares? I don't care. Be a good leader. Put the country first. There used to be the old thing, mission, men, me, and it's not. I don't see that any longer. I don't see that anywhere. I don't even see that in the military anymore. So even though I'm sitting here saying that we need to progress, there are certain things that we need to bring back into fashion, and one of those things is good old-fashioned discipline, honesty, loyalty, and tradition. And I think that, as my good friend Brent has proven with his career, if you just give somebody who needs a break, if you just give them that chance, they're not going to disappoint you. And they'll end up being like Brent, who's given more than 40 years combined to the public service of this country. And I think that he is a man, a flawed man, like the rest of us, a deeply flawed man, but he is a man to be emulated, and and I'm very proud to call him friend. So, ladies and gentlemen, with that, Norm's rant, the meaning of Norm's rant is keep the political and personal lives separate. And the reason why I say that, and I'm okay to say, Kennedy, Clinton, and Trump, they get passes because they're flawed individuals, but they did their best as leaders. But Trudeau does not get that pass because not only is he a flawed human being, but he's a shit leader. All right, everybody, have yourselves a great day. And next week, we will be having our interview with Matt Muzzy of the Wounded Warrior Program. So, like I like to say all the time, be as kind and gentle as you can whenever you can, but have a plan to kill everybody in the room. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.